In legacy, one of the biggest areas for me, we talked about legacy has three aspects. It has an identity aspect, it has an intimacy aspect, it has an integrity aspect. One of the major ones for me is identity. And identity is so key that it actually affects the whole of life. Let me give an example. When you're born, you're given a name. You are told you come from this family, you have an ID, you belong to this country, you live in a location. So there are different things that ID you, who you are, what you do, those things. And those conversations have a premise of what I call the two origins, according to people, of identity. And the first one is evolution, that you just happened. And yeah, you did, you know, forces of nature, and something came up, and we all happened. Unfortunately, that thought tends to affect especially young people because they tend to define themselves based on nothing. So you can do whatever. So there's no difference between you and a cow. There's no difference between you and anyone else. You can do whatever you want. In fact, that's why young people have something called YOLO. You only live once. It doesn't matter. Secondly, I think for me, most importantly and more permanent is the conversation of revolution. That I am actually a created being, I come from somewhere, I have a responsibility, there are things I should become, there are things I should do. What defines your identity? For me, there are 5 facts about identity that every leader, especially every leader, must be able to figure out, because if they don't, it has a way of affecting everything about their lives. Number one, identity is real. And let me explain. We all have there's always a constant struggle, and a need for us to identify ourselves with something. I mean, that's why young people like to, look for, a celeb, and, you're waiting to check how many Facebook likes you have. It's important. It's a huge need. You need to figure out. And every person has a struggle to say, who am I? Who am I? It's real. It's a real, constant, ongoing struggle. Number two, identity is relational, meaning it is defined by the relationship we keep, our family of origin, the friends we keep, our social lives. About socialites, again, as we said earlier, the relationships you keep have a way of defining who you are. In fact, most people do things because of what their friends think. And if they say, you seem to be this type of a person, most people will end up wanting and trying to become that particular person. Thirdly, identity is representative, meaning if, like in my case, I believe I am here to represent God, it has a way of defining everything for me. A lot of people say, you know what, you can live whatever, do whatever you want. For me, God is a very important factor as a leader, as a professional. Two reasons. One, it defines everything about me: my purpose, my personality, my priorities, everything about my life. There are actually around 25 things that why every leader needs God, which is an identity conversation because it has a way of figuring out. The second way is of saying, you know what, I'm purposeless. I'm just here. If I get to do, I do. I try things by myself. If I succeed, I succeed. If I don't, that's fine. So it is real, it is relational, it is representative. Number four, identity is resolute. It actually decides your rights and your responsibilities. For example, if I believe a man should be a provider, a man should be a protector, a man should be the one who leads his family, I will do whatever I need to do to accomplish those purposes and those responsibilities. If I think it doesn't matter, make a woman pregnant, you don't have to take care of it, and you can go ahead and just assume very important things. Fifthly and lastly, identity is responsive. You tend to do who you know or what you think you are. In fact, every action has something to do with identity. In fact, in an organizational setting, when I take responsibility, if I say I am a timekeeper, I will keep my time. If I say I must do whatever it needs to be done to make sure this project is completed, what the fact, or rather the reality, that it makes me make decisions, helps me to be able to say, you know what, I believe this is the right direction for me to go, and so because of who I am, it's resolute, I must do this. So I take responsibility, I pick my rights and use them for the right thing. Question for you: since identity is a huge question, what defines your identity? identity for me is a very spiritual conversation. So you can find, there's a page that we talk about the spiritual matters, redefining. In fact, we say moving from self-identity to God identity. You can like a page called Completeness, and then you can follow up on all those conversations there. But for now, as a leader, what is your identity? Your identity will affect your intimacy, your relationships. Your identity will affect your leadership, your leading relationships. You must be very clear on what your identity is. So who or what defines your identity? For legacy, identity is a key component.